Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying!
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast and the main podcast on a Tuesday. How are you? I hope you're all doing fantastically, spankingly well after a lovely weekend of football. The boys are back. Arsenal won. United are rubbish. Zubimendi is the greatest midfielder of all time. We're back in the Champions League. And Liverpool got a jammy goal because, of course, they did. But how are we, chaps? We're back as a three.
Oh, mate, feeling very good, but I am nursing a cold. And it is that season now, I think. I
think we all are.
I usually get ill like maybe twice a year, but when I get it, it's pretty bad. I don't know about you guys, but
I think you just described every male interpretation of every sickness ever. I don't get sick, but when I do, bro,
it's bad.
At least that's what Steph tells me. She goes, "Come on."
Yeah. It's sort of similar to childbirth, I'd say. Sort of the male cold and childbirth are sort of similar levels of discomfort. Rohan, I do want to come to you first. Do you have a word of the day for us? If you've missed this, Rohan recently revealed on a TCP Live that genuinely, it sounds like I'm mocking you. I'm really not. And I might start doing it myself. When you hear a word you like, you write it down, you try and use it. And I think we should try and upskill the Canon community, or up smart, whatever the phrase is. Ironic.
Improve the vernacular.
The vernacular, yeah, that's much better. Ironically, of the community with a word of the day. I think we should start doing it on the main podcast. So, if you've got a word of the day for us, Rohan.
Absolutely. I want to do one that's different to my recent tweets, and it's pernicious. Hopefully, I've pronounced that right.
Isn't it pernicious?
That's what I thought. It's pernicious.
Oh God, we've not started well. Then we've not started well.
I don't know. I could be wrong. What does pernicious or pernicious or Vinicius Junior mean?
A harmful effects. Like something that can be very harmful.
Pernicious.
Yeah.
Speaking of pernicious, Ruben Amorim. Before we get into Arsenal. Good Lord, United are bad, aren't they? I don't know if you guys caught that game yesterday. George, while you were setting up, Rohan and I were just ranting about the use of the wing-backs. I mean, if you're going to play wing-backs, play with width. Oh my God, he keeps playing into... I mean, I literally, I know it's United and it's kind of funny and they're bad and whatever, haha. But at some point, it's I'm actually annoyed for you. I'm annoyed at how... your manager is asking Ugarte to take it on the half turn 4v1 consistently. What is going on?
Yeah,
it annoys me.
Yeah, trying to make it a United or an Arsenal spin on this is I think that's probably a fan pet peeve, right? Where this idea is it's so basic, surely it might work, and just play your players in positions they want to be in. It's one of my favorite sayings. It applies here. I mean, when you're looking at it, why did you buy Dorgu to have him inside as a third center back? Why didn't you go and get Hato? If your goal was to play him a little bit more inside, then go and buy a profile that does that. I think one of my biggest pet peeves is when we talk about using players and, you've got that. I think the usage of the player is really the biggest issue at United because ironically, they've actually done some pretty brilliant recruitment in the last window, in my opinion. They haven't recruited poorly. And why is Mbeumo not being used as, how Salah should be used is beyond me. He's... struggling himself, Ugarte in the pivot. And I just think even their spacing, just Amorim doesn't know how to coach compactness. Maybe as a quick plug for the director's box on lines of engagement, you can have a quick use of that. But he really should look at the director's box, Ruben, because he'd understand where some of the compactness is, and that would help him.
Come on, Ruben. You want to be a director? Come on, mate. You know you want to. Good plug, George. Good plug. Right, let's get on to Arsenal. Enough Man United chat. Lads, we're in dreamland at the minute. I know we lost against Liverpool, but at the minute, just so much positive. There is so much positive to get into on and off the field. I feel so much optimism. I was thinking the other day, when was the last time I felt this optimistic about Arsenal? And not, again, I hate that I have to caveat this, not that everything's perfect, but this optimistic that even with the weaknesses that we do have, there's so much going on positive. And I think it was probably February, March 2024. Was the last time I was this positive about feeling as though we have a squad, because that was when, ironically, the last time I think everyone was actually fit. And they're not actually fit, but we now have a squad to deal with it. But yeah, in terms of the optimism for the season, the optimism for what the manager's doing, seeing newness, seeing problems that we've talked about for a long time not fixed, in the long term necessarily, but certainly solutions that we're seeing. I'm feeling, Rohan, talk to me. I'm just feeling really optimistic. Am I delusional?
We're all delusional. That's what we're called, aren't we? Positivity merchants. No, I'm feeling really good. Like early kickoff, I got my early kickoff as well, and we got the win. And see how nice it is. Like
Saw
you get
on
the
screens,
game,
mate.
yeah, I saw that as well.
I got an email.
Yeah, I mean, like...
TCP's going live. I mean, we saw you on the screens. Alex's tweet got shown to Eze and Madueke.
That was crazy.
Going global.
That was pretty crazy. Michelle, who's one of our listeners, sent me this. You're looking pretty stacked, mate.
Yeah.
You're looking pretty. You've been on the protein shakes.
I'm not gonna lie. I was looking at the thought, damn, I've made some growth here.
Gains.
But anyway.
Sorry, go on. You were at the game. Talk to us about the sort of feeling.
No, it's brilliant. Like the feeling going into it, the vibes, the performance. It just had a really good feel factor to it. With Eze getting his first start, Madueke, where this is now, his opportunity to have a real run of games on the right wing, and we'll get into individuals, but I thought he was fantastic. And I think George mentioned it in the instant reaction. I caught the first half of it yesterday. And, the fact that we went into that game with, key pillars out of our team. You're talking about Saka, talking about Saliba, being able to rest Declan Rice. I saw what Mikel said about, Marino being in a really good moment, and scoring a hat-trick, also scoring in the game before that for Spain as well. And allowing him to maintain that momentum was his idea with it. But I have a feeling the real idea behind it was the fact that Declan Rice played the two 90 minutes, both 90 minutes for England on international duty. And
No. Like Richard Keys knew he was fit, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
he knew he was fit, so that's wrong. Sorry.
Exactly. And we will never be able to win anything in Mikel Arteta.
That's very true.
Well. But yeah, I genuinely feel like it's about load management. And so far, it's a really small sample size because that's the litmus test for me with regards to Mikel. I don't believe there are major flaws in his approach tactically. Yeah, there are things, and we've spoken about it many times. But I feel like the ability to manage a squad, and we've mentioned it many times, and being able to rotate players accordingly, that was really good with the way that we saw Declan Rice not having to play him in that game, and the performance levels didn't drop, and it was a fantastic win, really good feel to it. And yeah, it was just a very Mikel Arteta win, wasn't it? Created opportunities, threat from set pieces, and conceded virtually nothing in the entire game.
Mate, we've conceded one goal all season. It was that Szoboszlai winner. And I love that I can hear your chair creaking again. It's TCP heritage. Great stuff. George, you sort of mentioned it in the Amorim analysis earlier about sort of the simple stuff, but it is true. And putting your players in the right positions. And Mikel was asked something earlier on in a press conference about the Champions League, which we'll get onto later. And he said this: 2 things have to go your way. You need to have a full squad available when it comes to the most critical moments in the season. And then the ball has to go in at the right moment or with the right decision. It has to, because the margin's so small. And on that first one, yeah, I mean, we don't have a full squad available, but what we have is a incredibly deep squad now. And it feels to me sort of that simple. I mean, obviously we'll get into some tactical stuff and some individuals and what was going on. But the fact is, we had Noni Madueke available when Bukayo Saka wasn't there. We have Mikel Merino in unbelievable form when Declan Rice needs a rest. We'll get into the more complicated stuff, but sometimes it really is just your squad's there and you're better.
I don't even think it's that simple, mate, because Mikel Arteta's biggest concern, there was a couple for people, but one of them was squad management. And I mean, the idea to have the squad, but also the quality where, for me, Mascara and Madueke were the stars of the show in the match, and as well Zubimendi. But again, what is common amongst all of that? 3 new signings coming in and delivering A-star performances, and not just being, okay, we'll pass with this, genuinely being man of the match worthy candidates between Zubimendi, Mascara, and Madueke. And they all had brilliant performances. And that's not even to get into in terms of some of the good stuff that Madueke was doing. And, we'll get into specific players. But to me, I thought that it was a really important, almost proof of concept for Mikel. I mean, for him to really lean into the squad management, he had to see it go right. And it went right in splendid fashion with these new signings. And him being so early into this, we're all going to be looking at him. And I think we all said this after the window he had to make sure that he was showing better use of his squad. That was a very valid concern that we've had over Mikel for multiple years. And to actually have multiple players of his signings perform brilliantly and be the stars of the show against Forest, I actually think shouldn't be overlooked from a recruitment standpoint. And the proof of concept for thinking, okay, well, you know what? I think the squad trusts it, not just Mikel, the players. You look at quotes from Saliba in terms of the idea of, look, he was making himself available, but really he wanted a couple days rest. And that willingness to play through a zone is something our players were forced to do that now they're not. Like, why do you have to play through an orange zone when you've got Mascara in the kind of form with Ben White? And it's not, we have lost titles based on playing people through orange zones because we don't have the players available, fundamentally. And, it's not just the numbers. I really want to highlight the quality of the performances between Mascara, Madueke, and Zubimendi. I'm sure we'll get into individuals here, guys, later, so I don't want to put too much meat off that bone. But let's just understand that they didn't just come in to do a job. They showed us things that some of the starters could look to do. I look at Zubimendi, for example, when you come into it, look, we know that difference between him and Partey, but the tempo control that he was able to do in build-up, it made Forest absolutely clueless. The way that Calafiori was popping into build-up, and then Zubimendi would respond by going on the slant, and Doy didn't know who to follow. And it was brilliant, and it was all because of his ability, Zubimendi's, to orchestrate that. Madueke, the running on the outside, Mascara, the level he showed in terms of how progressive he was from the back. These are all new qualities that don't just mean, oh, I'm a substitute teacher, I'm going to follow the teacher's plan. They actually added a little bit of their own identity into our play. And I think that's the most important thing when you start to look at recruiting a large number of people to integrate. You ask yourself, how much and what quality can they add? Can they add their identity to the team? And they did.
Yeah, I think obviously we're still dealing with a small sample size. It's only been 4 Premier League games. We're about to have the 5th game when you're hearing this in the Champions League, obviously. But I think if you built like a word cloud of all the things that we speak about on this podcast over the last year, squad management and central access and creating chances and attacking freedom and high turnovers and all the sort of big themes that we keep coming back to, that felt like it was addressed against Nottingham Forest. And what's exciting is as you allude to, feels like we have solutions within the squad for that now. We've now seen that and quite clearly against Nottingham Forest, which I think we discussed a little bit on the instant reaction. Let's stop teasing. Let's go into some of these performances. I want to start with Zubimendi. I think we did loads on Mascara on the instant reaction. If you want to hear about Mascara, I think we could do a whole section on loads of players, but I do want to talk about Zubimendi specifically. We've had now, I think it's his 9th game for Arsenal, if you include pre-season. Rohan, I knew with Zubimendi what I was imagining at least we'd get in possession, right? And I think we see that in terms of like how quickly he responds to, obviously a key example would be like the Leeds second goal, but how quickly he gets the ball forward, how quickly he responds to certain situations, how smooth his passing is. It tells me on Transfermarkt his weak foot is his left, but I don't believe you. Like, it's just, he's a 360-degree footballer to me. Like, what he does in possession is incredible, and we could talk about that. But mate, I was looking at the stats today for Zubimendi out of possession. He is our highest aerial duel win percentage. He has the most tackles and interceptions. He has the most blocks, including defenders, out of anyone in the squad. You go through all of our defensive metrics, Zubimendi is right up there. Talk to me about this guy out of possession, because you look at him, and I don't, as a fellow 5'11", 5'10" king, right? I know the feelings, right? And he's not got the biggest shoulders. He's not got the longest legs. He's not the quickest, but he is unbelievable. And you can read stats for La Liga and say, oh, how many times he's won the ball in the midfield, and you can do whatever you want. But until you see it in your shirt, different animal. And this guy, forget the goals, forget the brace. 12% of his career goals coming against Nottingham Forest. It's the out of possession stuff, mate. Unbelievable.
100%. So, we mention it a lot where when you're at the game versus when you watch it at home on the TV, I always feel like when you watch it on TV, you get a better understanding and idea of the game. Even just watching it as a fan, you get to see things a lot better. And in the game when I was there, I felt Madueke was man of the match, and George mentions it. All three of them were fantastic. Mosquera, Madueke, Zubimendi. But after rewatching it, I thought it was hands down Zubimendi. I thought even outside of the 2 goals, it's just everything about him. I think before the game, actually, in terms of the entire Premier League, Zubimendi has made the most interceptions or tackles out of any player. Not just Arsenal, but in the Premier League as a whole. It's obviously a very small sample size, but, from whoscored.com, I think it was. But yeah, I think you mentioned, Alex, didn't you, where like if there's one thing that stood out so far with Zubimendi, and we've all said that he's no slouch off the ball. This is someone who, Jorginho, the weaknesses that he had off the ball were pretty discernible, whereas Zubimendi, who is looked upon as a Jorginho 2.0, I don't think that's a fair comparison, because what he does off the ball, Zubimendi, is a lot better than Jorginho, in my opinion. And I think, as you mentioned, just how well he does to back up the press, how he's able to jump really quickly is fantastic. What I want to emphasise a lot on is it's the off-the-ball stuff, but the off-the-ball stuff that translated to how we found solutions consistently against Nottingham Forest. And he does this all the time. Like, I could go back and look at other games in pre-season. I can go back and look at Spain games. I think Spain, so like, when I watched Zubimendi a little bit for Real Sociedad, the feeling that I had, and it was only after 2 games, just like first initial thoughts were, I like him, but I don't really love him. But then this is where the bias associated with the team that he is featuring with and the players around him of Real Sociedad, they're not to his level. And, ultimately, when you don't have players on the same wavelength as you, your ceiling is going to be capped. Whereas when you see him for Spain, and we all saw that game against Portugal, and I feel like people who were a little bit, apprehensive of Zubimendi and the idea of him coming into the Premier League were like, wow, this is a serious player. Then you get the Rodri comments, etc. I'm slightly digressing, but going back to the game, like, what he does in terms of finding solutions is brilliant. Like, there are so many different ways. Like Forest, they have their weaknesses, and Anges just came, so they're going to try and implement a new style. And I know you went heavy on him in the instant reaction.
Style.
Yeah, but what I will say though is, like, Forest last season, on average, they had the deepest defensive line out of any team in the Premier League, even deeper than the promoted sides. And this season, it's the same really. So, what we do know with Ange is they're going to push the line higher, and whether that's a good or bad thing for them, remains to be seen.
Yeah, Morato looks really ready to do that, I think. Do it, Ange.
Yeah, but but what they were doing in forward areas, Morgan Gibbs-White would man Mark Zubimendi. Well, he would try to, when he's in the middle of the park. Common practice, the number 10 will do that. And then you had Ndoye on Calafiori. It was very interesting where Ndoye would literally follow Calafiori all over the park. And that's the dilemma the winger usually has against our fullback or against whoever's in that space. And what Zubimendi would do is, Mosquera, every time you saw him play that ball through the lines, every single time, Zubimendi enables that to happen because he's positioned himself to the right of Morgan Gibbs-White, and that means Morgan Gibbs-White needs to move a little bit more to our left, his right, which means that pass is now open, and then it's about Mosquera and the quality and the intention to do it. That's one thing Zubimendi does. The other thing is he always adds depth to our attacks. What I mean by that is, if the space is vacated, when Ethan Nwaneri drops and that space is open, either our winger will attack it or Zubimendi will recognise, I need to attack that now. There was that moment where he receives it. Nice play for our right-hand side. He gets onto the ball. We use our man advantage really well, where Zubimendi this time is actually like pushing higher and higher to drag Gibbs-White deeper. And what that does is it's giving the intention to Mosquera and say, you've got the space now, you can carry it. If he jumps, then we can take advantage of the additional man advantage we have there. And that's what happens. Morgan Gibbs-White jumps, Mosquera, beautiful pass, and then Ethan Nwaneri, Madueke, Timber, everyone there, they do really well, and as Zubimendi escapes and he switches it to Eze. And the final point that I want to make about this in his positioning, and it's all off the ball, is his lateral movement. You know how you mentioned the differences between him and Thomas Partey in one aspect? Thomas Partey would never drift to the left and be able to do some of the things that Zubimendi do. He is fantastic with his left foot. He's comfortable on both sides. There's no angle bias there. And when Gabriel had the ball, he was the spare man because Chris Wood was overloaded by our 2 centre-backs. because Forest wanted to keep both their centre-backs deeper alongside Gyökeres. Again, very common practice. Gabriel's the free man. When he has the ball, Zubimendi drifts to the left-hand side to really exploit that man advantage further up the pitch when Marino pulls wide to drag Sangare. Eze's got the fullback, etc. So I know that's really tactical there, but I just want to emphasise so much how good he is off the ball in terms of his intelligence, not just in the press, which is something that has, we've all said he was really good at it, but this good already, wow. But it's the solutions that he gives to other players on the ball. Well, I've seen a few comps of Zubimendi, but they don't show these things, and it does him a little bit of a disservice because it's like a lot of these things, he's not really touched the ball, but it's making an impact. So, yeah.
Very good point about Thomas
screamers.
Partey. And two screamers. Very good point about Thomas Partey, which I've stolen for a video. Thank you so much. George, I don't really set you up. I know you've got opinions on this. The one thing I will say though, quickly, I'm more interested since our scouted, from what you've seen of Zubimendi in these 9 games, what's shifted for you? Because I think me and Rohan have kind of outlined that, but I'd be curious about what shifted for you, because I think the out of possession stuff, and we did look at it on the scout, and I have looked at it, specifically for Sociedad, but until you see it, as kind of Rohan was alluding, around other players and that impact, and how it's different from Partey and how it's different from Jorginho, whatever, you don't realise the impact. I also think the out of possession stuff, very briefly, is something that it's massively underplayed in football. It's 97-98% of what you do on a football pitch is out of possession, right? So this isn't some niche thing that we're looking at and getting too detailed. No, this is stuff you do all the time. So, but yeah, I'm curious about what shifted for you in terms of seeing him in the show.
You just care because you're a Mikel Arteta supporter, mate. That's why you're talking out of possession, this and that, and that's the only reason.
I just want John McKenzie to like me. That's what it is.
Look, if I'm trying to hear what Rohan's saying is, he talked quite a bit about, of course, the out of possession and maybe the Jorginho through line of the defending style where it's just so intelligent. It's this idea of being able to anticipate situations and arrive where he needs to be. But a lot of what Rohan talked about as a surprise is something I theorized on the Scouted. But what I've seen is him be much more of a hub to space than a lot of people may have thought. Like when you look at this type of person, everyone says Regista, Paul Scholes, anchor of the midfield. That's what we're going to see. He'll drop out into the center back and form the 3. He'll quarterback play. These are the terms that you associate with a deep lying playmaker and what people will always say about Zubimendi. And yes, he's a lot more physical than those prototypes. So that's a surprise. But I think we kind of saw it on the Scouted. The thing that surprised me is how often he operates on a slant. And what Rohan's talking about, when Ethan drops and he's able to operate high and push high, I had made that comment about look at him through the eyes and lenses of Gundogan. And I think we're seeing a lot of those movements, but the way he's so consistent at operating on a slant is what gives him that advantage, whether it's pulling wide, laterally, whether it's going high, operating vertically, adding different depth to the final third, all of the space he's able to find kind of in midfield. I think we didn't do enough of a good service about saying how mobile this player was. And I wish I would have gone a little bit harder on the Gundogan comparisons, because this guy isn't just anchoring and offering things on a slant. The proactiveness that he displays out of possession, it translates to the in possession stuff. When somebody moves here, he's proactive in getting out of that role. And far too many times, we've had examples and criticisms of past players, by the way, that are stepping on each other's toes in the same zone. Zubimendi doesn't do that, even if it's not the right thing to do, in quotes. Even if Ethan comes into his zone, into his area, Zubimendi doesn't stay there, which I did feel Thomas Partey was guilty of other players were guilty of. More experienced players on our team have done that. He moves out of the zone to operate not just as an option to get out of the way, but actually be a dangerous receiver. He puts himself in positions to receive the ball just as much as he plays the ball forward. And that to me is kind of the special sauce, where you combine those things with him operating on a slant, him being able to understand space, and really the whole box movement, guys. Like, look, it's a screamer on the one, but the second one is such incredible intelligence in making himself available in the spot, in the box, to go after the seconds. That is the key. And that movement, I said it on the instant reaction. I'm telling you.
That's a Gundogan goal, isn't it?
It's a Gundogan goal. And I'm telling you guys, we're due for more. And I know it was weird because the stats say he doesn't score a lot of goals, and he doesn't. We said the whole point. He did almost 20% of his career totals in the match here with 2 goals. But guys, I think we're going to see a different level. And I think that also Zubimendi might realize a new level for himself when he's able to be afforded the freedom. Maybe there was a part of Sociedad where people saw that anchor, but maybe that was a limit of his teammates where he had to stay there. Now you've got people like Declan Rice next to you. He feels comfortable himself to start performing and adding skills and new zones that we haven't seen. And that's part of the evolution that maybe we don't do enough of on the Scouted, but also just in general, when you buy a player, you don't know what you don't know. And the player doesn't know what he could be in a new team. Yeah. So that I think we're learning a little bit about that. And I think he's more mobile than people give him credit for. This isn't a quarterback regista. He's more.
Just to quickly add on to that final point on this, and Arsenal and all these football clubs, they have the more data than we're ever going to be able to see. Okay. They're going to be able to have more footage, and there's going to be things that you do miss. The point I want to make, just 2 really quick ones. Thomas Partey, like in his peak, he was absolutely fantastic. 22-23 season, and we won't be downplaying what he did in that. I know you're laughing at that reference. Done it again. But
he's gonna have tattooed that season, mate.
Yeah, but he was fantastic. But it's these things that he's doing, his movement, his proactivity that Thomas Partey just wasn't doing, especially the lateral movement left to right. And the final point, I don't know if you've seen that clip of Arne Slot going around. I've posted
the pivot.
Yeah, and he kind of explicitly says, like, there was a player that is very well documented who he wanted, in terms of what he can do in terms of connecting play from the last line. Arne Slot is referring to his defensive line there, all the way to the forwards. And you're seeing that. How many times do you see him? He gets onto the ball and he wants to play it forward. And it doesn't always come off. Like sometimes the passes get blocked, but he's always looking to play it through the lines as well. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And that was kind of where I was going to leave this section, because I just think the fact that it has taken him this long to come to Europe, and he's been really selective, and he's got a Basque manager, and it's that he's wanted to be comfortable where he's going, and he's wanted to stay at Sociedad and all that sort of stuff. The fact it's taken him this long, he's chosen us. He stuck with us since January when he probably could have gone with anywhere. There was rumours that people were offering him anything. Just makes me love him even more. And he's smiling in every single photo. I absolutely love this guy. I mean, he just, yeah. The last thing to say is I did this like a line that I sort of an improvement I want to see from every single player. I didn't have anything for Zubimendi, so I was just like, maybe does he take too many shots from distance? Because I'd seen like 2 or 3 that are just sort of gone over, and then the next one just puts it straight in, shuts me straight up. Let's go on to Madueke. Not necessarily just on the Forest game, because there's some interesting quotes that have come out, and I want to talk about him. So Madueke was asked about playing alongside Eze and Gyökeres against Forest, and he said, Ebbs and I play similarly in terms of we don't really think much. We just play what we see. In terms of the collective unit, Mikel Arteta gives us freedom to get the ball and to try and be dynamic and positive, and I think we did that today. We probably could have scored even more goals, but that's the process. We're 4 games into the season. And thank you, Alex, for the comparison to Arjen Robben. I will follow you back on X. Oh, okay. I love how neither of them wanted to comment on it as well. So it's like, I'm not replying to this. George, really, really good game for Madueke. Really good game. I don't want to talk about it specifically, but just to give you some stats, no player completed more take-ons or created more chances in the Premier League this weekend than Noni Madueke. Interestingly, and possibly to go on to level of improvement, Noni Madueke's 12 touches in the box is the most by an Arsenal player on record without having a single shot in a Premier League game. Interesting one for the sort of next steps for Madueke. Talk to me about him, because he has been such a live wire. The angles he can create are mesmerising as a dribbler. And I said this on the Insurrection, I stand by it. I think he's the best 1v1 specialist at that skill. And I'm not saying that, therefore X is terrible. It's not apples and oranges, but I think he is really, really probably the best I've seen under Mikel Arteta at Arsenal. He's got an opportunity, because I don't think Saka's going to be back before the weekend. He's got some big shoes to fill, obviously. But he's filling them. He looks really, really positive and strong. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's the mentality to attack space and the consistency to which he does it, even if it doesn't come off. And, we can talk about angles, and that's kind of a little bit about how players able to play more 360 in general. Like, that's a benefit. We've talked about how these are guys that have endurance after the carry to still produce powerful shots and powerful actions. So there's a physical capacity to this type of player that we just didn't have. And we recruited it all across our front line in terms of recruitment through Gyökeres, Eze, Madueke. They've all got this, and that front three have it in spades. And it's what they showed on the weekend. But specifically with Madueke, to me, it's how direct he is constantly at every moment to shift, face up his man, go. And it is a strong mentality to do that. You put yourself on show every time to force a 1v1. And I think that not just his mentality in that aspect, the way that he's been able to adopt the out of possession stuff, which I will leave for Rohan, because I think he's got some feelings on that where I feel he always had the capability to. But the thing with Madueke, it really is this whole stride thing for me. That's the key. I don't even think he manipulates the ball in a way that is technical. It's not a cage baller in terms of the success on the 1v1s. It's the turn, face up, and I'll eat 10 yards in 3 strides. Even if it doesn't work, I'll cut back. But I've progressed play from the middle third to the final third every time. And it's the final action that we're a little bit frustrated with. But guys, in this game, I thought there was a lot more care, to which Noni Madueke was using his weak foot crossing and trying to find somebody back post. So there's at least the intent. I don't think it always came off. There was a couple moments. I think we can look at him to be a little bit more intentional. But there was definitely moments that you could see, okay, I'm thinking about my touches in the box. Now, it didn't lead to a shot, which actually for Madueke is a good thing. Madueke was a shooter on sight in terms of some of his statistics. And I actually think the intelligence and what we said in the scouted was, if you put as much care into the final action as you did in preparing for your 1v1 duels, you're going to have an explosion. And I think actually adding touches before the shot is what Madueke needs. He didn't need to just quickly think and create the action. Yeah. You actually need to pause and think about it. So I take this really positive beyond the numbers in terms of what we saw, because I'm thinking, okay, now you're starting to take in, you took in the out of possession, but now you're taking in some of the things that in possession turn you from a 50 million pound question to an 85 million pound winger. When you're able to do those things and affect play with that consistency, that's a skill that everybody and every team in world football will want. So, it's brilliant, mate. It's brilliant in terms of some of those things. And I also don't want to undersell the whole point that you said of who he's replacing and the impact that he has to replace with, because it's not a given that he's going to be able to do those things. I mean, look, you can apply this to Mascara as well, but still, Madueke had a lot of crap, admittedly, some fair, in my opinion, and others, and most of it, unfair. And he has really, really done well to endear himself to every fan. I don't think there's an Arsenal fan out there that's looking at him and saying, I just got to respect the fight and the dog, in terms of saying, I'm going to prove you wrong. And he is.
And Mikel's spoken about that, and he said he one of the moments he said he was convinced by Madueke is seeing the response to the signing and him just basically going, okay, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I absolutely love that. And I think, the question marks around the mentality, we could go into that, but it's probably not for this podcast, maybe not for us to talk about. But Rohan, on the comments that he made about the freedom, we've spoken many times in this podcast about sort of the freedom that Mikel does or doesn't give the players, maybe the sense of things. But I was watching it, I said this on the instant reaction, and I was watching it and I was going, okay, it's a different set of players, but I am seeing a very, very different way of things. And I'm seeing a lot of the problems, the central access and the carry on the transition that we've been speaking about and the release and stuff, yes, they're being solved by, let's say, Waneri instead of Odegaard or Marino instead of Rice or whatever it might be, but different qualities leading to different outcomes. So, maybe if we saw that front six for the next 6 months, we get sick of their problems and want to go back to the previous one, right? But it does tell me that maybe there's less of Mikel in this and more about the profiles, is basically the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. Talk to me about Madueke, maybe some reflections on George, but also on that point, because I think we have been critical of the perceived freedom that Mikel doesn't give to his players or whatever. Based on that game, how much do you reflect on the idea that maybe it is more profile based?
Yeah, I've got quite strong thoughts on this. It's been the big topic I think the big topic around Mikel Arteta from a tactical perspective is always around the freedom, and are players really allowed to express themselves? And mate, we can go back to previous pods. I've never really felt that was the issue for me. The issue and the conversation I feel we can have about Mikel is, does he always put players in the best possible positions to thrive? So, Declan Rice has been fantastic since he signed for Arsenal. But do we believe he's used him in the best possible way to unlock his real qualities that we're seeing this season? I don't think so. Did we always use Kieran Tierney in the best possible way post Zinchenko? I don't think so. Have we used the left-hand side to the best of our capability? I don't think so. I think that's a conversation to be had, and that does in itself lead to players being constrained of some sort. But I really push back on the idea that he doesn't allow players to express themselves. And the reason why I do. So, Mikel Arteta's been here for a long time. We can look at Noni Madueke's comments and we can feel it's a new player. He's not been Mikel Arteta'd yet. And that robotic nature is gonna soon come into his play. But I really push back on it, because if we ignore the signings that we've made this summer and we look at attacking signings like Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz, Leandro Trossard, these sorts of players. Let's have a look at what they were before and since they've came to Arsenal. Has Gabriel Jesus changed the way that he plays since he's came to Arsenal? No. The whole thing with Gabriel Jesus in that 22-23 campaign, I know I've said it again, but is the fact that he was a different type of player who unlocked an element of unpredictability, a capricious-like nature in terms of his play and how
That's the next word of the day.
I need to stop smiling when I do it, because I know you're going to smile. It's going to put me off. But it's, he didn't change his game, right? Gabriel Jesus is still the player that we saw at Man City. He's allowed him to express himself. Kai Havertz, he's allowed him to express himself. Calafiori is a big one here as well, right? How many times, everybody watched Calafiori Italy and, some of the footage at Bologna and him being this maverick type. And again, coming to Arsenal, you're thinking, we don't want Arteta to tame him. We can't let him restrict him because he's this player who is just, he can make things happen. Has Calafiori changed his game since he came to Arsenal in terms of who he is? Absolutely not. And Madueke as well. When he gets the ball, he's going to take his man on. When Eze gets the ball, he does different things to Martinelli. So the whole idea in which Mikel Arteta restricts players from expressing themselves, I really push back on. And to further compound this, I said it on TCB Live as well, where he was asked about Arne Slot. So what do you think Arne Slot's changed, in these few games? He's like, he didn't say anything specifically, but he said the characteristics of the players. They've got different players now, so they're going to be offering different solutions. And my final point on this, and it's about Ethan Nwaneri, right? And just to finish this argument. So in the game post-match, he said about Ethan, where he said the moments he's very close to the box, he's got one thing in his mind, which is a goal and nothing else. That's great that we have different qualities within the same position. And again, against Leeds, it was the same thing. Ethan Nwaneri, since he's came into the Arsenal team, the youth footage that we've all seen, George would have been watching a lot more than me and you, Alex, but he's got that trademark move. Has that trademark move been removed from his game? Absolutely not. Does Martin Odegaard do different things in those spaces? Yes. So my point is that he does allow players to express themselves. I just think the conversation is more about, does he put players in the best possible positions at time to thrive? Yeah. And there's a conversation there. So, and my final food for thought, sorry to just really quickly, is if Mikel Arteta was a person who doesn't want players to have individual freedom, why would he sign Eberechi Eze and Noni Madueke? That's it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, and I think it's a really, really key distinction, isn't it? It's like not playing with freedom versus being unable to play with freedom because you're being put in difficult conditions, and those are two very different things. I think you could add Declan Rice and his goal and assist explosion to that conversation. Yeah. I think you could probably add what we're about to see from Zubimendi. But I also think you could look at certain players and say, are you being put in the best positions to thrive? And I think that's, it's a good distinction. It's interesting, actually. He was asked this by Tom Canton from the Gunner Talk in his latest press conference pre-Forest. And he was asked basically if there's a fear of overcoaching a player. And he said something quite interesting. He said it can be, or coaching them badly. It's like communication on the pitch. You can say, no, I want you guys to coach coach, but coach well, because coaching badly is a terrible thing to do. It's better not to coach and be on mute than coach badly. That's always a line that's very important. I think that's an interesting distinction as well there. But yeah, he is obviously aware of overcoaching and giving players too much information. I think probably the pushback to this conversation would be, he's not been Mikel Arteta. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see, to see the players. And again, to go back to this rigidity conversation, I wonder how many times players have been in difficult positions because they've kind of had to be, and we haven't always had the squad to actually allow them not to be. For example, sometimes I think points last season of Martinelli's demise because he's playing on the right like half the time, or or whatever. So you could sort of point to certain things there. But yeah, interesting one, and I think as we evolve, I wonder if the narrative generally will move past that. It just might take some time. Let's move to our next topic, which is on my list. Here it is. Mikel's quotes about the squad, which I think were really interesting. George, you posted them a little bit earlier. He said, "It's been excellent for what we needed and what we wanted to achieve. We are lucky. We are very lucky players want to come to Arsenal now, and they prefer to go to Arsenal than somewhere else. And this is an unbelievable power as well that we have built and gives us our very best chance. We talked last year about the Premier League, and we've been 3 years there with the amount of points that normally you are the Premier League winner, but the level is somewhere that has never been before, which is great. In terms of recruitment, we're in a much better place in terms of the squad last year. We're trying to do everything we can." He said that to TNT. They didn't show my tweet, though. George, we've known that the squad was a big issue last season. That's not really the massive talking point here, I don't think. What I am really excited, though, is to, and this is kind of, you don't want to go into make or break or whatever, but Mikel has been given the keys, and he is saying himself, he's been given the conditions in which he can show us that these issues that we talk about, these problems that we feel he may or may not have, and if we did this, and if we looked at it at that angle, and if we bought that player, and if that player wasn't fit, it feels like we're not going to have to be having these conversations. And actually, Mikel himself it's quite bold statement. The squad's in a really good place. He's, I want to stop short of saying he's putting pressure on himself, but that's not what he was saying last year. So yeah, the reflections on that.
Many times last year. I don't think between the summer, between January, Mikel was unhappy. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, he got given, was it 8 players? 7 players? 8? 8.
8, yeah.
He has nothing to say. He would have been people would have said, "Well, we've given you all these tools," but I don't want this to turn into Edu versus Berta, but it will. These comments will become a kind of civil war. But what I really enjoy is it is clarification in public, almost thank you to Berta is how I interpret those quotes, where it's an example of, okay, yes, he's happy. He's been given the tools. He feels more prepared. But I say this a lot. You've got to give rope to hang yourself with sometimes, with players, with managers, and with other people. And he has been given the rope. You can't say that he wasn't backed. He wasn't given the resources. You can't say those things. And by the way, Mikel doesn't want to say this. I think one thing that really frustrates me about the Mikel Arteta conversation is he's incredibly honest about some of the failures that he's been able to do as well. But he clearly takes it personal, because the last press conference, guys, that wasn't just the only quote. He was a man possessed and pissed off. I'd encourage everybody to have a watch of that press conference, because he was just sending shots constantly at different narratives on it. And I do think that this quote on the squad is important, because I don't think we've always been harmonious in terms of the backroom staff and our playing staff in the last year. And for as much as we've done brilliant to have multiple campaigns in which we're second and we're so close and we're having these conversations, I don't want to talk about off the pitch. It really annoys me, to be honest with you. I have quite strong opinions about it. So a lot of people might get kind of, I don't know, confused at my approach to it, but I really hate talking about it. And I think Mikel does too. No coach wants to talk about failures off the pitch, because those are things that are within your control that you feel that you can, right? When it's on the pitch and there's some failings there and you're a coach, you're self-reflective as, your job. It's your job to be, and it's on you. But I really think it's not so much as him putting pressure on himself as much as it is for me. I think he's saying thank you to Berta, and he's like, we're ready. I feel ready. And I don't think that wasn't a feeling I got last year. Regardless of the quotes, when Raheem Sterling's coming on deadline day and Edu's saying he's not a player that we had looked at, that's not something I will love to do at the start of the window, guys.
I gave that an 8 out of 10 window.
Yeah, and that those feelings, right? It's a big bookend to sit there and say, and I mean, he's happy. And I think he's saying thank you, Berta, for doing, because it's one thing to talk about the plan, and then it's another thing to actually execute. And our team have executed. He feels ready. We feel ready. We feel the impact of the depth, and we can finally just talk about on the pitch, which I'm incredibly happy about. And that is the genuine answer towards it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'll take that as your apology to Tim Lewis. The Sterling thing is mad, because it's that sort of thing, isn't it? If you don't know McDonald's is around the corner, you'll be happy with whatever. But if you know there's a McDonald's, you're like, oh, I could always be happy at McDonald's. And it's kind of that thing. I think this is one of the things that we're going to struggle with as we try to become, insert your favourite phrase here, the Madrid of England, a bigger club, to reach the top level, to do whatever your personal goal is. It's one of those things. And now we've seen how Andrea Berta operates, and how we've seen how we can operate in the market, and what we have done in the market, a record ever spend, and the way we did it, the manner in which we did it. We now have that to compare to. I think the Sterling thing felt very much like Wenger era, like it's all the stuff that we kind of used to. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, like Kim Kallstrom on loan, I get that. Like, you know, we can make sense of it. Actually, if that had happened at Real Madrid, who we're trying to be, probably in that summer, we wouldn't have had curly hair podcasters going, maybe it could be all right, actually. Yeah, maybe it could be all right. It's a new approach. And I think just to go back to the Edu comparisons, he is very good, Mikel, I have to say, at dealing with these questions, because he knows, and I think you're right, George, he doesn't want to talk about it, but he's asked the question. I was very happy with Edu. I think Edu did a tremendous job at this club, especially where the club was at the time when he joined, and he was a big part of that transformation of the football club. Then he decided to leave, and Andrea's come in very different circumstances and done an incredible job as well. It's not necessary to compare when you have two people at that level that are both so good. Whoever did this man's media training is unbelievable. Yeah, like it's so good.
He studied it.
It's so well dealt with, because he's not lied. He's not said no. He's better. That player's that. Like, he's obviously saying he was great for that era, and we've got different circumstances now. We've got this guy, and he's great, and we don't need to compare them. But that doesn't mean he would be great in this era, and doesn't mean he would be great in that era. So yeah, we have moved on. Rohan, I don't want to lock you out of this. I'm sure you've got thoughts.
No, yeah, I mean, like, I feel like he's only really tripped up a few times, memory serves me correctly. Like, I didn't really enjoy the way he threw Pepe under the bus, you know, that time against Leeds where he got sent off. And I know he deserved to get sent off, but I'm very Wenger-esque in that sense. Like, don't give anybody the ammunition to pile on the player anymore. And I felt like he did for Pepe in that situation.
But the fact we're going back... No, I was going to say the fact we're going back to 2021 tells you how normally good he is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I might be missing others, you know, like... I'm not going to lie, I didn't like... And again, it is frustration, isn't it? And you've just been knocked out of a semi-final of a Champions League. But, you know, when they asked him, we deserve to win the game. All of the PSG team says, also, I felt that. And the report was like, who was it? He's like, all of them. I was like, okay. But overall, he has been fantastic. Like, and as you just alluded to there, he's definitely coming prepared. He's not saying these things on the spot. If he is, then goodness me.
No, and he'll know what he's going to be asked, and he'll have that prepped. And I think it's Mark Ganella, I think he's the communications guy, and he'll say what you're probably going to be asked today. And, you know, so yeah, but, you know, credit where credit, he does make mistakes, of course. But I think when you look around at how other managers deal with situations, I mean, one that comes to mind is Ruben Amorim, the way he answers questions, and, you know, we could be in a much worse situation. So
can I ask you guys a quick question? Do we as fans undersell that quality? Because, okay, yes, people can talk about it being PR, but coaching is a communication job. And when you want to talk about Ange, guys, we also went through our very own communication issue in Unai Emery. It doesn't mean he was a bad player. It was a miscommunication on style, on ideology. Like, do you think we as fans undersell and just call it PR as a flippant way to just dismiss it as, you know, formal training or whatnot? Like,
yes,
I do think it's a skill. No?
It is. I watched his, I know you spoke about this with Faisal on teased to be like the hour-long thing with Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
And I actually I have a couple of things that I'd like more from Mikel, to be, and I'll say in a second. But he is a fantastic communicator. Like, he really is. In his second, third, whatever language he's speaking, he's so clear. He's so incredibly clear, and always, like, it's like there's never a point where you feel he's deviating from what he's saying. It's literally, but it kind of is. It's very, like, methodical the way he does it, and that's perfect. And, you know, there's a number of things that he talks about specifically where he is brilliant. So, for example, he spoke a little bit about, like, getting fighter pilots or something in. He said he woke up one day and was like, I feel like our match day process isn't particularly good. What's like ways that we can get one word across to each other that means something, and we all understand what that means, because, you know, in the air you smash into somebody, you're dead, kind of thing. That was really interesting. He spoke about like if someone's going to have a difficult conversation, thinking about the quality of where you are. So, for example, he said, like, if I'm telling a player that they're going to go from a tier 1 to a tier 2 player, do I do it in my office facing them? Do I do it next to them? Do I do it with my kids at home? Do I invite them to my house? Different things, and like being intentional with that. So he's such a good communicator. He obviously thinks about this. The one thing I would say, and because he was next to Steve Kerr, it kind of made him, and maybe this will come with experience, a lot of it is like, it's very coaching manual. It's very here's a heading, here's how to better communicate with players, and here's all the ways you do it. Steve Kerr is more like, here's this thing that happened that tells, it's like an anecdote that tells the story.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted a bit more of that from Mikel, but I understand he's guarded. He will be more guarded before he wins stuff or whatever. Steve Kerr's been there and played with Michael Jordan, done whatever. That was the only thing. But I think you're right, George, that we do undersell how good a communicator he is in his second or third language as well.
Just to quickly add on to that, I listened to it as well, you know, after Farzad attended, and I was a little bit annoyed that there wasn't more to it, because, and I know Steve Kerr is a legend of the NBA and stuff, but like, I kind of like wished he wasn't there. Yeah, I kind of wish he wasn't there, but then at the same time, NBA fans listen to that for thinking, I don't want Mikel to speak. But it's really interesting because it's like all these coaches, you know, they have these conversations, different way of thinking, and I feel like Mikel has read a lot of these psychology books as well, like Thinking Fast and Slow, Chimp Paradox, Atomic Habits, and all these things, because like that one about
players as well.
That one,
I think Miles has posted quite a lot about books Mikel's given him.
Yeah, like that one about, you know, the location and being in the right environment, not being in a situation where you're under high stress, like after a game, for example. I remember like reading Chimp Paradox, and just there's like a section in there where it's like when you have like a big argument, there's no point just having that conversation prolonged in a state where you're both really fresh from the argument. You need to be in a different environment, and it's not a conversation that you ever want to have. And I think he alluded to it in the talk, but it's putting yourself in the best possible position to have the best possible conversation of a bad conversation, you know, and he's class. And I feel like, do you not run out of ideas? You know, like in All or Nothing, where you see these different innovative ways. And
well, he said at one point, like, he loves kind of the margins and finding different margins. And I do think it will come with time, the kind of more anecdotal, sort of older white, because a lot of it was very much like, how important is communication in leadership? It's like, obviously it is, rather than like, can you give me a story? It could, I don't think the host particularly set him up particularly well, but I think I found him more engaging when he gave anecdotes and stuff, and I'm sure he does have them. It's just probably a lot of it is he's aware of how the media takes stuff. You know, think how everyone dealt with the pickpocket thing.
Yeah,
like, you just can't be bothered. Do you know what I mean? You must just be like, I don't care. I can't be asked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I reckon you'd be class at asking the questions, genuinely. Like,
my dream, Rohan, can I tell you my dream? I keep
know
saying
what your
this on
dream
pods,
is. I know what it is.
Is, you know, City have a podcast with the players. Yeah. Mate, it's my dream. George, so go on. You cut something. I'll go off.
You know what this is like? This is like a really good student to me when you're comparing Steve Kerr and you're comparing Mikel Arteta, and because I saw the same lecture and I thought it was actually brilliant to me, and it showed me the gaps that I think Mikel does have steps to go forward. Already a phenomenal communicator. Look, guys, how many times it's a meme at this point where get him on a phone with Mikel Arteta and the player will come to us, right? Yeah. And so it's no surprise that he's a good orator, but you know, he kind of did. I look at him and he's like that honor student that has taken English at like the grade 11 level and is going into AP, and they describe to you the ways to do an essay. And Mikel has been able to say, okay, intro paragraph, I'm going to have my thesis, concluding, and he's got all of that prepared. It's very meticulous. It's great. And then the advice on the very first edit, what do those teachers tell you? They say, okay, why don't you create a story to show what you're saying instead of, you telling what you need? And I think we've seen in actually, ironically, some of the documentaries, he's more intentional than that lecture showed. I mean, the whole idea of the pickpockets, the whole idea of the Anfield music in the background, he is incredibly intentional about trying to show. But I think Arsene Wenger's greatest gift was essentially coaching in a way that you didn't even know you were being coached and giving you the ideas and the tools to make it think it was your own idea. That is mastery of teaching at the end of the day, right? And Steve Kerr gives me a battle-hardened manager vibe, in which there's a bit of that. Like, he's very clear, he's intentional, but you can just tell he's there to tell a story because he goes, okay, I need to relate these complicated concepts that I'm really aware of in my jargon and my intention. I want it to be accessible to other people who are listening. And he gets that sympathy a bit. And that's the Arsene Wenger that I talk about, where you see Jack Wilshere, you see all these ex-player quotes, and even Vieira in that one-on-one interview with Roy Keane, he had mentioned where what Arsene's greatest strength was not telling you what to do, but giving you the ability so that you found that out, you learnt what you had to do, and just giving a player that scope. And I do think that's going to be the evolution of him winning, personally. Like, I agree. At this point, he can't afford any more long time without a major significant trophy. So he feels like, I need to be as clear as I can. The more clear you are with the modern player in the modern game, granted Xhaka talks about it, that will give you the best outcome in today's era of players. But there is that extra 10% that I feel like if you can provide them with the tools for the player to get it, that's elite understanding. So if I tell you how to solve the solution, that's no good in a sense unless you really understand it. And that's that 10% of coaching that I think everybody strives towards, in being with teaching.
Yeah, and I think will just come when he wins. I imagine I can't imagine a player ever coming to Mikel and going, I've got this problem, Mikel, and can you help me? And him just going, don't know, work out. He would never he will have all these things, and actually sometimes that is the answer. Just go, you work out. I don't know.
And if he doesn't know, it'll really annoy him. It will really, really annoy him, which is different as you mentioned about Arsenal. And we got a George analogy in there as well.
The analogy guy's going to be happy. There is someone, if you haven't noticed, there is a guy in our YouTube comments who gets all of George's analogies, and some days we're
only one so far this pod, George.
Only one. We need 10 more before the end. Rohan.
Yes.
If I was a podcast enjoyer, say I enjoyed the Cannon podcast, say I had only listened so far, I hadn't necessarily looked into the Cannon podcast particularly. What would I find if I went in the description box of the YouTube or went in the description box on Spotify? What would I see? Would they link to anything?
Lord, so much content that I'm feeling ravenous. Just
extra content.
Yes, extra.
How do I access it?
You just go below. Go below this video. In the description, you got a free trial that you can access there. And what you can get... Oh, no. God, that was a bit too close. What you can get is rewatches that are coming out soon with me and James B. That's going to be a regular watch. AFTV James. The one who celebrates straws. Sorry, James. Sorry, James. Yes! I love you. You get ad-free main pods, you get youth pods, data pods that will be soon coming out because we don't like the small numbers game. We like large numbers, large sample sizes. So that will be coming out eventually, and then you got access to the Discord server. George has got his new Tactics Corner segment out. That's available for directors. Just a plethora of content.
A plethora. We'll even give you the Rohan word of the day chucked in for free. Plethora should have been. Let's go to the Discord where you get priority access to questions. Let's do this one from Funky Blueberry. I don't think you've ever asked a question by Funky Blueberry. That's hard to say. A common and personal favourite Georgism is the phrase "difficult conversations are going to be had." What do you feel are some specific difficult conversations around players or the club that may be coming? Rohan, I'm going to start with you. Because I think I know George's.
Difficult conversations around players, club. The big one's going to be the manager. if we don't win anything. Like, that's going to be the big theme around it. Everything, and we know it, being podcasters, doing content, dreading every loss or drop points because you know what the immediate comments are going to be. And that feeling is just going to be, compounded by if Arsenal don't win anything. And there will be the difficult conversation that will be had there, and people won't want to hear context when there most likely would be context as well, But at the same time, we have to hold the team accountable, as George alluded to. I don't think Mikel is someone who shirks responsibility. He wants to be in the situation where we judge what's happening on the pitch now. That is the position that we put ourselves in. It was interesting because it was, I think it was on the Arsenal Vision. I had a small conversation on X. I forgot his name. That's so bad. The host. Sorry.
Well, Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot. Sorry.
You'll get a clip, mate. That's it.
Oh my god. And
Elliot,
it was about.
That is representative of Rohan's views, not of our views.
It was about about injuries, and I think all three of us, we sat here and said, no team can win a major honour in today's game with the situation that we found ourselves in last season. I will fight that argument every day. But and I think he puts the argument about you still even though we've lost Saka, though we lost Saliba, if they're out of the big games, it's I don't think he's saying this exactly, but I'm feeling like we have that, we have something to fall on potentially if we don't beat a Man City or something. But my thoughts and feelings on that is different, because the whole purpose of the window was to ensure we mitigate the drop-off. Now, again, if we lose Saliba, lose Saka for a whole season, mate, you're not going to win it. You're just not going to, because over a large sample size, you regress to the mean, and that's what happens. The mean without those players is not a mean that is going to be winning Arsenal the major honours. But in the isolated games, even if it's against Man City, I think we can hold the team accountable. We absolutely can. In games against our competitors. Like, for example, against Liverpool, did any of us put profound emphasis on Saliba and Saka not being there? We didn't. No. Because we're in a different situation now. And it's an isolated game, even though it's against the champions, even though those players make the difference for sure. But we've put ourselves in a scenario where, this is his squad now, and there's going to be that accountability. Yeah.
Shorter one from me. One of Ethan Nwaneri or Martin Odegaard won't be at the club in 18 months. And I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe 24 months. I can't see a world where both of them can coexist. Especially with Max Dowman coming up. I don't know how they're both at the club, and I don't have and people will hate this, I don't have a prediction of who. I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. But at the moment, I cannot see how you have Max Dowman, the talent that he has, and you keep Odegaard and Nwaneri. Don't see how it happens. George?
Yeah, I'm not going to weigh in on that because then I'll be accused of having an agenda. I think, look, the biggest conversation to me, it's gonna center on Mikel. Honestly, we've got to a point in which we look at this squad, and you talked about accountability, Rohan. For me, there's the trophy argument, but it's about addressing the very few weaknesses he's had. And if we believe, by the way, him to be as good as he is, then there should be no problem doing these things. And the one thing is about him getting players in positions that they thrive on better and optimizing that, removing that as a weakness for me, because it's so broad across the entirety of the team. I don't want to see an indication of the Kieran Tierney. When you've got a squad with this level of tools, it's two-pronged, right? You've got the squad management aspect, in which there's no need to run players into the ground or overplay them in certain aspects. You've got the tools and you've got effective depth to use it. But also, with more tools, it means you can be more intentional about how you use those tools. There's no way, in order to continue using the hammer for a particular job, that might need a wrench. We had that limit prior, but we don't need to do that now. And so when he does it, or if he does it, there's going to be a lot more criticism towards that. And I'm going to call it, if he Amarims with this type of squad, there's going that's gonna be the new slur, the Amorims. If you Amorim,
he Amorims.
if he Amorims the squad, then I think that people are going to be frustrated. Like that's not going to be a con that people are going to have a lot of sympathy towards after he's been given the squad that he's been given. So that's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, and I think it's directly related. That to me, bar extenuating circumstances, is going to be the reason if we aren't successful. Like I think he's already shown squad management differences. I already think that, he needed the players to do it. That's pretty typical. But it's about a coach getting in his own way. That's typically when it goes wrong for any coach. It's not just Mikel, could be Unai Emery, Ange. Ange can't organize a press. He gets in his own way about certain philosophies. Every coach can sometimes let their perception imprint things that they shouldn't. And I really think that's directly related to this idea of, can he put our players in the best positions where they thrive more often? And I think that's going to be a conversation we'll have this season.
Question from Dinny. Between winning the double, earning over 90 points in the league, or only conceding 15 goals in the league, which feat do you think this squad is best equipped to achieve? And just to give you some contextual numbers there, Rohan, have a guess. If we continue to concede goals at this rate, how many goals we're going to concede across 38 league games?
So we've conceded
Smart, you can
one.
just do the numbers.
I think it's like 9.
9.5.
Yeah. See, extrapolate over 38. Yeah, 9. It's not going to happen.
What's the Chelsea record again?
I think it's 14.
14. Let me look that up. At least.
Is there potential for you?
15. Chelsea 2004-05.
And Dinny's asking we could surpass that then, so less than 15. Is that what he's...
Yeah, I mean, he was saying, on the projection, it could be like 9. But do you think you could
break
beat the record essentially?
Yeah.
I mean, ranking them in order, I don't think I have anything available to me right now to suggest that we can win the double. So I'll put that last. Like I think he's alluding to, again, the big double, like Champions League and Premier League. Because again, that ties into squad management, doesn't it? Really, if you want to win both, you're gonna have to be able to remain competitive during crunch time. Then, so that's a question to be asked. I'll put that last. I'd put 89. I'll put 90 points first because we were very close to that in 23-24. So I think that would be first for me. Second would be the goals conceded. I don't think that'll happen though. That record was crazy by Chelsea. The league's a lot harder now. So
yeah, if you look at the best defensive seasons, the top 4 are all from pre-2008.
Yeah,
and there's only it's like 2004-05, 99, 06, 08. Then there's a couple from 18. Well, there's the one basically both from 18-19 Liverpool Man City season, and then it's 09, 09, 07, 06. So it's a complete freak for anyone in the modern era. And I'd even argue the game's changed completely since that 18-19 season. So,
what would you say?
I think I'd probably if you mean the double Premier League and the Cup double, I'd put that second. But if you mean the Premier League and the Champions League, I'd put that last. I'd go 90 points first, and 15. I think it's achievable. Like, the defensive depth we have.
Crazy.
If anyone's going to... Look, I don't think we'll do it, but if anyone could do it would be us.
Yeah, 100% if anyone. I mean, how many goals did we concede? I can't tell you off the top of my head from remember our peak year of January 2024 all the way to the end of the season. We probably only conceded I can think of 2 against City, 1 against Liverpool, that's 3, 2 against Villa, that's 5.
Mate,
1 against Everton.
I would say that this group deserves a record like that. I don't think I've seen a defensive talent like this in years. I mean, even the Chelsea team that did it, they had a brilliant back four, but hey, we've got Hincapie as the backup. We've got Ben White as a backup to Yuri and Timber. Mascara, De Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori. It's incredible. It really is. And I'll put that. Yeah, I think it's they deserve it. They deserve it. If we believe the players are as good as what we say they are in terms of our center back partnership being the best that we've seen potentially in our club history, let alone in terms of some of the legends we've had. They deserve it. They deserve this team deserves not just you'll win a big trophy, but some weird stat, like a unique
crazy
thing.
record.
Yeah, that's tied to them, and it has to be in defense, given the out of possession qualities that they show.
Just to answer your question, Rohan, we conceded 7 goals in that end of that 24 season.
Yeah, I thought of 6 there. I think that additional one was.
You thought? Wait, can I test you? Which ones?
Yeah, so it was 2 against City, 2 against City, 2 against Villa. So that's 4.
Hang
one
on,
against Everton.
Where's your one against City?
Sorry. No, of course not. No. Can I start again, please?
You can start again.
Okay. 1 against
Considering
Liverpool.
this is mental. Yeah, go on.
One against Liverpool, then 1 against Brentford, 1 against Everton, so that's 3. 2 against Villa, it's 5. No, you got to give me a bit of time. I want to get this.
You started with Liverpool that 1-1 in December, and I was going from our 5-0 against Palace in January. But
Liverpool, we conceded one in the at home in the new year. It was the weird goal between David Raya and Saliba, where Luis Diaz just puts it in.
The FA Cup?
No, in the Premier League. Remember the 3-1?
We did. Yeah. I have it in front of me, and I couldn't see that.
Oh man, what's the
other game? Newcastle 4-1. Yeah,
Newcastle 4-1. What's the other one?
We conceded against. This is for all the history buffs. If you're this far into the podcast, you're in. Basically, since the 5-0 against Palace, Forest scored, Liverpool scored, 2 games clean sheet.
Oh, it was 2 by Spurs.
Yes. Yeah. Goal against Newcastle. Then we went 6-0 against Sheffield, 2-1 against Brentford, 0-0 City, 2-0 Luton, 3-0 Brighton Hove Albion, 2-0 we lost against Villa.
And David Raya did that madness in that Spurs game. Remember, he just passed it to Romero.
2-0 against Wolves, 5-0 beat Chelsea, 3-2 against Spurs, 3-0 against Bournemouth, 1 against United, and then 2-1 against Everton on the final day.
For some reason, I was thinking about that 2-2 City game last season. Oh, God's sake. Apologies.
Yeah, you're such an idiot. God.
Such an idiot.
God, how could you get that wrong? Oh my God. Before we finish, chaps, we should talk about Bilbao, which will be happening probably imminently when people listen to this podcast, or has already happened, actually. We should give a word to probably some Champions League debuts for the likes of Eberechi Eze,
Madueke's not playing the Champions League.
Madueke. I was just thinking, But did he play with PSV? Possibly.
No, Europa League. He played against us in the Europa League. He came on, I remember.
Max Dowman, George, would you play him? Make him the youngest ever?
I'm not opposed to it. I wouldn't say no to it.
That's crazy as well.
That's crazy. To be honest with you, I would like... we have a lot of players, and they need to have their fitness. I think that there's a time for the record, and it doesn't have to be now. It could happen in a couple of weeks. First game in the Champions League, start well. I'm a fan of, maybe a little bit Yurda in terms of put a team out there to win, which we will. But I'm not too concerned with records. I think we have enough squad depth there, mate. Like a plan B is still going to be absolute first team quality. Like, can Norgard make an appearance? Can Mascara continue? Can Gabriel get a rest? I just want the main guys that I consider our top pillars to have a rest if they need it, and a smattering of others, because we've got a huge squad. And ironically, like your Martinellis, your Trossards, like I need them to be fit and ready and able and start to push a bit, because we've got this was the first of 7 games before the international break, right? The Forest game.
We've got Athletic away, City at home, Port Vale away, Newcastle away, Olympiacos at home. Thank you, George. At home to West Ham, and then we are. Then that's international break.
Just a quick one on that Olympiacos. When I went to Athens and I saw the ground, it's pretty rough, that area.
Very.
I looked at it for, goodness me, it's quite scary. It's broad daylight as well.
Noni Madueke has played 443 minutes in the Champions League qualifying for PSV.
Oh, okay.
God, another stupid one from you, Rohan.
Yeah.
God, how didn't you know that Noni Madueke played the Champions League in 21-22?
I'm still gutted that I didn't pronounce Vinicius right.
Vinicius Junior. Give us your team, Rohan, before we finish.
Yes. I want to hear your teams as well, if you can do as well. I will go for Raya, and I would have put Ben White in there, but
Not Kepa?
he's missing it. Too early. But he could, be fine too. But I'd keep it with Raya. I want to start strong as well, so I'll go Mosquera right back, personally. I'd like to bring Timber on towards the end of the game, keep him fresh. And then Saliba, Gabriel, Miles. I'd give Calafiori a break in terms of from the get-go. Zubimendi, but I think the Norgard news is really big, because I think if the only thing I'd say about Zubimendi is he has gassed out towards the end of games, I would say. It was very clear at Anfield, and if Norgard was there, I think Mikel would have probably subbed him off and given him minutes. So I think Norgard's key to get some minutes in rotation for Zubimendi coming off later in the game. Then I'd go Ranieri, Rice, Madueke, Gyökeres, and Eze, and rotate accordingly during the game. They've got no Nico Williams as well, so that's positive for us.
Yeah, I think we're going to smash them. I'm going to smash them. Yeah. I'm not going to say a number, but I think we're going to beat them. Actually, who cares? It probably would have gone. I think we've won 3-1.
3-0.
Fair. Yeah, I was going to go for 2-0. What would your team be? Would it be similar?
Yeah, very similar. I think I'd go Kepa. I think I'd agree with your back line if Saliba is fit. If Norgard's fit, I'd start him. Deckers, maybe, and Waneri. Yeah. Maybe Trossard looked good at the weekend.
Do you know what's quite gutting, right? I mean, maybe it's my bias as well, because I triple captain Madueke against Forest, and if you know FPL, I've had a stinker there. Just felt it. And he had such a good game, and I walked away with nothing. And Trossard comes on. First action, assist. So, yeah.
Teaches you never to play FPL. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your questions. We'll be back with an instant reaction to the Bilbao game tomorrow, probably in the past when a lot of you listen to this. We'll be back with a rewatch of the Bilbao game. What are you doing? Yes. Rewatch of the Bilbao game is the first in this new series. George and I will have a scouted out for you to the Thursday-Friday time of Calafiori. And then we'll be back for an instant reaction to the Man City game. And you can watch me on live from N5 if you're so inclined, as I won't be there. I'm so sorry. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, chaps.
Thank you, good sir.
Pleasure always.
Thanks so much for watching. And thanks for keeping Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed. Electrifying. Inspiration.